Hello, everyone. So, Virgo, 3 words. That is all it takes. 3 words that carry more weight than almost any other combination in the language of two people who have history between them and unfinished business and a distance that was not supposed to be permanent. But that became longer than either of them anticipated. When it began, can we talk? Is coming. Welcome, and let me tell you everything that is behind those 3 words, because they deserve to be understood in the full weight of what they are carrying before they arrive, so that when they do, you receive them from an informed place rather than only from the surprise of the words themselves without the context that gives them their full meaning. Someone pushed you away. I want to acknowledge that first, before anything else, before the regret, before the can we talk, before the movement toward you that is forming on the other side of whatever distance exists between you. I want to acknowledge the pushing away and what it cost, and that the cost was real and is still being paid by you in the ongoing form that certain things cost long after the moment they happened. You did not deserve to be pushed away. Not in the form it took, not with the degree of distance that the pushing created, not without the full and honest explanation of what was happening on their side. That would have at least given you the dignity of understanding, even if the understanding could not change the outcome. What happened was not fair to you, and I want to say that clearly before I say anything else, because I think you have been generous in how you have held what happened, and the generosity deserves to be acknowledged before we move to what is coming now, which is also real and also deserves its full attention. Whew. Now I want to tell you what happened on their side during the pushing away and in the time since, because I think you have been in your own experience of what happened necessarily without full access to theirs. And I want to give you some of that access now, because understanding their experience is not the same as excusing the pushing away. Those are two different things. And I want to offer the first one without the second one following automatically. The pushing away came from something in them, not from something in you. I want to say that with full confidence, because I think some part of you has been sitting with the question of what you did, or what was insufficient in you, or what about you made the pushing away seem like the necessary response to whatever was happening in them. At the time, the answer to that question is nothing. There was nothing in you that made the pushing away necessary or deserved or the right response to what was actually happening. What was happening in them was fear, the specific kind of fear that arrives when something matters too much and the mattering becomes overwhelming in a way that the person who is overwhelmed does not yet know how to be inside without flinching, without creating distance as a form of management of something that felt too large to be fully present with, without the risk of losing themselves in it. Um, the pushing away was them trying to manage something that was bigger than their current capacity, to simply be in without the protection of distance, not a judgment of you, not a reflection of your value, a failure of their own capacity, to be present in something real without the armor, that the armor was not equipped to handle being around you. That failure is theirs to own, and they are owning it now, which is why can we talk, is forming on the other side of wherever they are in relation to you right now. I want to describe the regret specifically because it is in the title and it deserves its full description rather than only being named and then moved past. On the way to the can, we talk. The regret is not a surface thing, not the mild discomfort of someone who made a choice that did not produce the outcome they expected and who now wishes the outcome had been different without feeling any particular responsibility for the choice that produced it. This is deep regret, the kind that lives in the body, that shows up in specific moments, in the middle of ordinary days, without announcing its arrival, and sits there with a particular weight that does not resolve through the passage of time alone without something being done with it. They regret the pushing away in the specific and embodied form of someone who understands with the clarity of retrospect what they had and what the pushing away cost, not just in the relationship, but in their own experience of being a person who treated someone who deserved better with less than they deserved in a moment when better was available, and they chose the protection of distance instead. That specific regret is what is producing Can We Talk? Not a casual reaching out, not an impulse born of boredom or loneliness, a genuine reckoning with what was done and what it would mean to address it honestly rather than continue living inside it without ever saying what needs to be said to the person it most needs to be said to. Whew. I want to tell you what Can We Talk actually contains. When it arrives from this person in this specific situation with this specific weight behind it, because 3 words can carry very different things depending on who is saying them and from what place they are coming and what the 3 words are asking permission for. When they ask whether talking is possible, Can We Talk contains an acknowledgement of the distance that was created and the responsibility for that distance that they are now ready to name rather than leave unnamed in the comfortable ambiguity of a situation that simply drifted apart without either person being accountable for the drifting, even when the drifting was not symmetrical. Can We Talk contains an apology or the intention of one in whatever form this specific person is capable of delivering it, which may not be the perfectly crafted form that would feel most satisfying to receive, but that is genuine and honest and coming from the place of actual regret rather than the performance of regret for the purpose of producing a specific response from you. And Can We Talk contains a question beyond the literal one. The deeper question of whether what was broken by the pushing away is something that can be addressed in the space between two people who are both willing to have the honest conversation that the situation actually requires, rather than a comfortable version of it that resolves the discomfort without addressing the real content. Now I want to come to you fully because we have been talking about them, and I want to give this time to you and what you need to think about before Can We Talk arrives. And after, the first thing I want to say to you is that you are allowed to take time before you respond to Can We Talk, if and when it arrives. You are not obligated to be immediately available for a conversation that involves your own healing on a timeline that serves someone else's regret rather than your own readiness. Can We Talk is a request, not a demand. And you are the one who decides whether the answer is yes. And when yes becomes possible, and in what form the yes takes shape, if and when you choose to offer it, take the time you need, not to punish them for the pushing away, but to be in the readiness. That allows the conversation to be genuinely useful for both of you, rather than happening before you are ready for the version of it that you actually deserve to have. The second thing I want to say is that before Can We Talk happens, I want you to know what you need from it in specific terms, not in the general terms of wanting things to be different or wanting to feel understood or wanting the distance to close in whatever form closing feels like. What do you specifically need from the conversation that Can We Talk is requesting permission for, to feel that the conversation was worth having rather than a reactivation of something painful without the repair that would justify the reactivation? Do you need the acknowledgement in the explicit form of someone saying directly what they did, and that it was not the right thing and that you did not deserve it? Do you need the understanding of why it happened, not as an excuse, but as the information that would allow you to make sense of something that perhaps has not fully made sense since it happened? Or do you need to know what they want now and whether what they are proposing by asking Can We Talk is something you want to, in the honest and undefended version of your own wanting, know what you need before the conversation happens, so that the conversation can be directed toward what would actually be useful for you, rather than simply reactive to what they bring without the guide of your own specific needs. The third thing I want to say is perhaps the most important, and it is about forgiveness. Not in the sense of you must forgive them, or forgiveness is required for anything to move forward, or that forgiving means what they did was acceptable. Forgiveness in the sense that is most useful for you not for them. The specific kind of release that allows you to stop carrying the weight of what was done in the form of something that continues to shape how you move through your own life long after the situation that produced it has either resolved or moved into its next form. Forgiveness in that sense is not given to them. It is reclaimed by you. The energy that was being spent on carrying what they did, reclaimed and redirected toward your own life and your own forward movement and your own receiving of what is good. That cannot be fully received, while a significant portion of your energy is still occupied by what happened before. The Can We Talk is giving you an opportunity not just to address what happened between you, but to put it in a different place in your own experience of it. If the conversation goes well enough to allow that, I want to tell you what I see coming. If you choose to have the conversation, and if the conversation is what I am reading it to be, which is genuine and honest and coming from the real regret rather than the managed version of it, I see something resolving, something that has been sitting in an unresolved state between two people who both know that something needs to be said that has not been said yet, and who are both moving, perhaps at different paces, toward the place where the saying is possible. The resolution, whatever form it takes, does not necessarily mean the restoration of exactly what was before the pushing away. What was before the pushing away was real and worth something, but it was also the version of the connection that existed before both of you went through what you have since been through. And both of you are different now than you were in that before. What the resolution produces could be something new, built from the people you both are now, rather than a return to what existed before the pushing away created the distance that has since changed both of you in the particular ways that time and experience and the consequences of choices always change people when they actually sit with them and learn from them rather than simply moving past them into the next available distraction. Can We Talk is coming with the full weight of everything I have described behind it, the regret, the acknowledgement, the question of whether repair is possible, the genuine reckoning of someone who has sat with what they did long enough to understand its full cost and who is now choosing to address it rather than continue living inside it without ever bringing it to you. When it arrives, you have choices, and all of your choices are valid. The choice to say yes, the choice to say not yet, the choice to say yes, but with specific conditions that you name clearly before the conversation begins, so that both of you know what is being asked and what is being offered and what the conversation needs to produce to be worth having for the person who was pushed away rather than only for the person who did the pushing. All of those choices are valid, and all of them belong to you, not to the regret, not to the can we talk, not to whatever they are hoping to produce. By asking to you, the person who stayed in their own life and their own forward movement while someone else was working up to the reckoning, that has now arrived at your door in the form of 3 words that carry everything I have described behind them. Can we talk? They regret pushing you away, and they are finally finding the way to say so to the person who deserved for it to have been said much sooner than this. You deserve the conversation in the full form it can take when both people are honest and present and willing to say what actually needs to be said rather than the version of it that is easier or safer or less exposing. Receive it on your terms, at your pace, with the full knowledge of what you need from it before it begins. That is the power you have in this moment, not the power over them or over what they are feeling or over whether their regret is real, but the power over how you receive what is coming toward you and what you allow it to produce in your own life. Going forward, that power has always been yours. Even during the pushing away, even in the distance, even in the waiting for something that took longer than it should have to arrive, it remains yours now. As can we talk forms on the other side of the distance between you and the person who pushed you away and has been living with the weight of that ever since. Whew. And yours is the voice that gets to decide what comes next.